Oh man, I am super excited right now. Not only do we finally get to move on to a whole new season of anime, but I'm actually doing a topical review for once. So tell me, how are we gonna kick off Winter 2017, a whole new year's worth of anime? Nope. 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 Hello, I'm Jacob Chimera, and welcome to the anime look back at Winter 2017. Now, I do know that Fuuka was highly anticipated by the fans of the manga, but in my opinion, it was a poorly executed show. However, before we get into that, I should probably give you a little synopsis of the plot. Fuuka is a story about Yu Haruna, an introverted high school boy who prefers spending more time online than with people in real life. All that changes when he meets a quirky, strong-willed girl named Fuuka Akitsuki, who loves such unpretentious things as going to see movies just for the soundtrack, and listening to music while standing on the roof of the school gazing into the distance. Yu and some of his classmates are strong-armed by Fuuka into forming a band together, and the group becomes rather popular. Over the course of the show, the main focus is on a love triangle between Yu, Fuuka, and Koyuki Hinashi, a childhood friend of Yu's and current famous singer. Now that I have the formalities out of the way, I can talk about the first thing about this show that ticks me off. That being, the first 2 minutes of the first episode. It begins with Yu standing on a street corner and Fuuka runs into him. Which, first of all, cliché much? After that, Fuuka gives us not one, but 2 panty shots compressed into those first 2 minutes. Now, normally I try not to get hung up on fan service. Lots of good, or at the very least decent anime I've watched have moderate to excessive amounts of fan service in them. However, there are 3 things about Fuuka's use of fan service that annoys the hell out of me. Number 1, it feels disingenuous to start off your show with a shot of women's underwear just to tempt horny teenagers to keep watching, especially when you consider number 2. Past the first 2 episodes, there is very little fan service in comparison, making the first couple episodes really stick out. And number 3, panty shots are, in my opinion, the most tasteless and unimaginative form of fan service. The beginning and ending of a series can often make or break it, and while Fuuka has plenty of other problems beyond those first 2 minutes, it certainly did set the show up for failure. However, this anime's biggest weakness by far is the pacing. Much of each character's growth, development, relationships, and story points are either barely focused on at all, extremely rushed, or exist only to distract from the main point of the story. When Yu and Fuuka first meet, she smashes his phone while accusing him of being a pervert. And yet, by the end of that same episode, she goes to a movie with him, alone, and acts all sweet and flirty. Now, I don't think I have to point out that that is a massive leap in attitude for a single episode, especially when you consider the 2 only shared about 10 minutes of screen time together. There's a problem with Iwani Sara, the band's guitarist. When she's introduced, there is a strong suggestion that she is romantically interested in Yu like Fuuka and Koyuki are. But unlike Fuuka and Koyuki, her feelings and conflict about the other girls vying for his affection are never shown or examined. It would have made much more sense to not include that element rather than just tossing it in so that Yu could have his little harem for absolutely no reason. Makoto Mikasa, the band's keyboardist, has a subplot with his father disagreeing with him being in a band. The problem is this subplot gets no attention, And then, Makoto's father just disowns him in episode 10. It isn't given sufficient build-up, and it's all so sudden that it's impossible to get invested in Makoto's troubles. The band breaks up at the beginning of episode 11, and they're pretty much back together by the end of the same episode. This part of the story should have been drawn out more to give it more emotional impact, rather than just having the characters leave and then immediately get back together. Furthermore, all of the kids get really good at playing instruments way too fast. While there is a suggestion that they practice a lot off-screen, I would have liked a stronger sense of realism in this area, and a heavier focus on the work they had to put in to achieve their goal. Then there's Yu's sisters, who are completely unnecessary characters. They contribute nothing. They don't deliver exposition or help give us a better sense of who Yu is. The sisters exist only so they can waltz around the house in their underwear and get in a few unnecessary fan service shots. Time that was spent on the sisters' pointless appearances could have been spent on any number of the things I just said needed more time spent on them. I also don't much care for this show's romance, namely because I don't like any of the characters involved in that romance. Yu is your standard, bland, generic protagonist with no defining characteristics. To me, this is problematic because if you have two girls who are both in love with him, shouldn't he have more defined characteristics so we know why they love him? Koyuki has had a crush on Yu since the two were little and has maintained that crush over the course of several years of them being separated, writing all of her songs with him in mind. That is not what I would call love. That is what I would call an unhealthy obsession. And both of the girls are so bloody annoying, constantly dancing around the issue of liking Yu and never saying how they feel. That wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact that Fuuka acts like Yu intentionally hurt her every single time he even looks at another girl. And just as bad, when Koyuki finally says that she loves him, it's on live television, resulting in her fans flying into a jealous rage and mobbing Yu's concert. Speaking of which, episode 8, the episode where they actually performed their first concert, was probably my least favorite episode. First off, the whole mob being there was probably meant to make me feel bad for Yu. But since I'm not invested in his character, I didn't really care what happened to him. Furthermore, all those guys being there, intentionally going to a high school band concert just to boo this one guy, all it did was make me think of how pathetic those guys must be. I realize there are people who get way too invested in celebrities in real life, but even so, come on. Third, the mob was calmed as soon as the band played their first song, which I saw coming a million miles away, and it is such bullcrap. No angry mob in the history of angry mobs has ever been stifled by a band playing music. Finally, the song the band plays is the intro song of the show. This is incredibly stupid because the way the moment is framed, it's meant to be powerful. This is the first time we get to see this band perform together, but the whole effect is ruined by having the song they play be the song we hear at the beginning of every episode every week. It's especially bizarre since they play a new song immediately after that one. It would have made so much more sense to play the new song first so as to give their performance a feeling of being new and exciting, rather than making it samey and boring. And here's the most tragic thing of all. The supporting characters are so much more interesting than the main characters. So it's not that they can't write good characters, it's just that they put all the focus on the boring generic ones and never give any focus to the actually interesting and dynamic ones I would like to learn more about. Kazuya Nachi, the band's drummer, is a track runner who was originally trying to get Fuuka to join the track team, but ended up getting pulled into the band instead. He has a funnily grumpy attitude towards everything. Iwana Sara is the sister of a famous guitarist, and was previously kicked out of every band she was ever in because she has trouble expressing herself. And, as I mentioned before, Makoto Mikasa has a subplot about his disapproving father. I like these characters way more than generic Yu, pretentious Fuuka, and obsessive Koyuki, but they're given so little focus. Seriously, why couldn't the show have been about them? I probably would have enjoyed this anime if it had just focused on these characters instead of the lame, poorly executed romance. I did not like Fuuka. The first episode immediately turned me off of the show, and rightly so, because the rest of the series is not much better. The main characters are stupid, the romance is poorly executed, and the pacing is all over the place. Now, I never read the manga, and after this I never plan to, but maybe it's better. However, I can say that this anime is definitely not worth watching.